Are you going to share the word cloud, Katie?
Yes. Let's get it up. All right, everyone can see this screen, right?
I can see.
Sorry.
Oh, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, we're navigating here. I think I just lost it. 1 second. Here we go. There we go. Ooh, these are good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we can talk through a couple of these, but it looks like collaboration is a really big one for everyone. Connection, flexibility, innovation, communication is really key. Trustworthy, efficient, collaborative. So everyone is on point on what we're trying to achieve here. So I'm really glad that we all have these ideas in mind when we're trying to create stronger teams. And these will be really key to have in mind during this discussion. So we'll switch back over to presentation. Thank you all for participating. So if you aren't familiar with Black Ink IT, who are we? We have been in Indianapolis since 1993. We are a managed service provider whose passion is for technology and caring for our clients. And ever since then, that has been the cornerstone of what we do. Our mission is that we want to keep our clients and communities safe and productive. And we feel like Microsoft Teams really helps us achieve this mission. At our office, we use Teams, we utilize it for projects, and it keeps us up to date and really able to collaborate with our coworkers. So we're very excited to be sharing these tips, and hopefully you get something valuable out of this presentation. So I will turn it over to Craig, and he can introduce himself on this slide.
Sure. Do you want to put the slides up? We're still looking at the word cloud, Katie.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No worries. Real good. Let's just let me flip back. So hey everybody, my name is Craig Schroeder. As Katie said, I owned a Microsoft consulting firm for 20 years, doing ERP systems and CRM systems and IT and software dev, especially around agile and customization and integration. So sold that back in 2015, and now I'm working with partners like Katie's firm, Black Ink, in doing fractional CIO services for companies, mainly in northern Indiana, but I get down into the India area once in a while, into Nashville. But basically, what I'm helping people navigate now is the whole digital transformation, and Teams is a big part of it. And it's pretty neat to see when you adopt it the right way. This cloud first strategy that we're in, this digital transformation that everybody's going through, Teams with the back end being SharePoint makes it really, really nice to help people in this transition. So really excited to talk to you about Teams, and we can, since it's a small group, we can make it more interactive. If you guys have questions, just raise your hand or just bounce in, and I'll be happy to just answer the questions as we go. So you want to flip to the next slide. So the foundation, I was glad to see collaboration and efficiency as some of the word cloud points, because that's what you get with Teams. The old school way of doing things from a collaborative standpoint, email, chatting or whatever else, it doesn't work. And I've been fortunate to roll out Teams in a 300-person organization and 20-person organizations, and you get about an uptick, 20% uptick in optimization of your time, along with just a lot of efficiencies in interacting with files and even using the chat mode. And what I've experienced and the goals that we usually set is a 25% reduction in email noise. We're all busy, we're all trying to get things done. And when you can collaborate efficiently, it really helps out with projects, priority management, and just get throughput and momentum. So it's really good to enable and empower your team to capitalize on this new environment we have. And what's cool about it is we're getting enterprise software at a middle market price. So there's a lot of people don't know about the whole Power Platform, which we'll get into later. But we'll keep rolling through some of these slides and get to the interaction. So when you start thinking about Teams, and I don't know who's using it or who's not using it yet, but there's just the baseline foundation that you need to set. But it begins with awareness of what the product is, all the Office 365 tools you have at your fingertips that interact with Teams. Teams can work with, is embedded in Outlook now, it's embedded in, Planner, which I want to get into with you. But this awareness cycle is really important. And the majority of the people that have Teams and Office 365 aren't aware of the 20 other applications that you have at your fingertips, and all built on the Power Platform. So you can do business process automation and start building out, Power BI dashboards and things of that nature. But it begins with this Teams and alignment standpoint. So awareness is step one, rebuilding the foundation, everybody has a baseline knowledge of Teams, and getting their files within Teams is usually step two, where people really take a foundational step. A lot of people have file servers still. And what we're finding that to be is step one is baseline Teams, and then get their files in the back end SharePoint of Teams, because Teams is now the new interface for SharePoint. You can still set up all your portals in SharePoint, but cost of ownership and the complexity of setting up a SharePoint site usually inhibits it from a full adoption standpoint to really help companies out. And so really getting that foundational set with just the collaboration pieces of Teams and the files is usually step one. And then you go through the implementation and adoption cycles of really continuous learning, continuous using the posts, the chats, and building out all the other applications within Teams. So those are kind of the four building blocks I like to point out as we go through the process. We'll hit the next slide. Okay. So lists. Most people, and we can make this a Q&A if you want to at this point, but does anybody have another application besides Planner or To-Do that they use to track all their to-dos? Jacob, maybe I can call on you.
Personally, I started using the Microsoft Lists function. Before that, I was keeping track of it in Excel.
Yep, Excel is normally, when you say Microsoft Lists, what are you talking about, the To-Do app or?
No, the new disconnected from SharePoint list.
Okay. Is that the SharePoint list that you're talking about or not?
Yeah, so it's that's something they released this year. It's essentially a SharePoint list, but it doesn't have to be embedded in a SharePoint site.
Okay.
So it's called Microsoft Lists. It's one of the Office 365.
Yep. So you put all your to-dos in that, and do you collaborate with anybody on those, or do you use?
In this case, I don't. It's just my personal thing. I'm not sharing them, but part of me moving them here is so that I could share them with my team if I needed to or wanted to.
Sure. Jenny, I see you're off mute. Do you have anything that you use for list tracking today? Maybe. All right. Well, we'll get back to that. Sure. So the power of the list is really important, but the collaboration around list management, project management, and priority management is really something I run into all the time when I'm implementing Teams. They're like, how do I prioritize things? Because you can't have 10 number ones. You can only have one true number one. So then picking up this momentum, and that's why I put in there. I taught a couple classes on getting things done and organizational new skill sets about list management. And really, when you get good list management and good project and priority management, it frees up your brain to do deep work and focus on what you're working on currently instead of trying to remember things. So it's heady, and there's a team's adoption is half technology and half psychology, right? Because you want to train them, you want to teach them on the new ways, and it's really, really neat to see. Okay, so Jenny just bounced in and she said she's using To-Do. Thanks, Jenny. So then, after you get this list management, we're going to have multiple lists, and I'll show you in a second here. I'm going to do a demo for you. But you have multiple lists for personal stuff, business stuff, project stuff. So you can have multiple lists, but you can't have like 10 number ones. And that's just really the power of list management and making sure some of these projects and items are small enough so you can get them done on a daily basis. So it's not this big project, because I was a president of a company for a couple of years after I sold my company, and I couldn't get momentum with implementing the ERP system. Everybody said, hey, I'm going to get, there's 10 of us. I'll get this done today. I'll get this done today. I'll get this done today. And at our daily stand up, they said they didn't get to it. I'm like, well, you said you were going to get to it. Why didn't you get to it? And it was too big. I said, so break it down into smaller chunks so you could catch the momentum. And I had to actually start them out with 3x5 sticky cards, and we stuck them on the wall so we could see what was on deck for this week, what they were working on today, and then they'd pull it through and put it in a completed column. And the goal was to see a bunch of cards in the completed column and then start seeing them stack on the floor. So you got this momentum, because I tried to use Planner with them, but they couldn't get it because it wasn't in their face all the time. So I really had to rewire their brain first and then start using the technology. And that's the whole pen and paper concept here. Sometimes if you start out, and I'm a big technology advocate, and that's where we all got to end up. But if you got to rewire their brains first, you might have to get some physical interaction involved in it. So they can see it, they can feel it, they can see the cards moving along. And then the realistic expectation talks to if it's too big of a card that's not going to get done today, then you break it down into smaller chunks so you can see it moving. And then to trusting each other internally, just if you say you're going to get it done. So it builds this level of trust and accountability so you can gain the momentum, so you can get projects done, and you can feel this accomplishment and actually build business value. So I wanted to put that in there because, if we jump right into using Planner, if it doesn't get adopted, you got to pull back and say, why is it not getting adopted? And so you might have to pull back, and I have had to do this 3x5 card thing on the wall with multiple clients, and it actually works out very well from a rewiring standpoint. So just wanted to make that a point for you guys to digest. Let's go on to the next slide, Katie. So when I think of Teams and Planner, there's really the cool thing, we all have Outlook now. Outlook works with To-Do. Microsoft Teams, you can embed Planner, and you can use OneNote. So what I do with clients, we create master technology roadmaps that align with the business strategies. So that's the big picture. And then what we do is we create planners that align with the technology roadmap. And then we use Teams to collaborate in real time. And we use Planner for real-time meetings. And then actually real-time project management. It's a pretty powerful tool. So I just want to, when you implement Teams, a couple bullet points, I won't read them all to you, but you should expect about a 25% reduction in email noise, just because the back and forth, that goes away, because now you can collaborate inside of Teams and on a card, and all the communications in their entirety are right on that project, or right in that team, or in that chat, and everything is searchable too. So it kind of pulls things together. Obviously, you're going to get a lot more efficiencies with it, and I'll kind of show you that here in a little bit. And then one version of the truth. I say this quite a bit, because as soon as you send an email with a document attached to it, that document now you can have two versions of truth. somebody, I can edit it again, somebody else can edit it again, then you don't know which one's the real version or the latest version. And I've seen people make business decisions on wrong budgets, because they just had the wrong information. So the cultural shift that has to happen is getting your files up into the Teams/SharePoint back end, and then you send links. You don't, even externally, the shift that's happening is setting up an additional team that external users have. So you get out of that file back and forth also, because you can configure it to allow external vendors, external customers to collaborate, and it still keeps it secure. But usually phase one is getting out of no email attachments internally and just links only. One version of the truth. What you get with SharePoint as the back end, your file management, you'll get built-in version control. It remembers every version. You get multi-editing. 2 people can work on it at the same time. And you have that restoration and compare feature. Meaning if I work on it, Katie works on it, I work on it, Katie screws it up, I can go back to my version 3, say restore it. My version 3 becomes version 5. We never lose a version, but I can get it back, or I can compare Excel documents. I can compare Word documents and see what's changed. And it comes in handy for Excel, especially in the accounting groups where formulas can be sensitive, and you can actually see what changed in a formula. And then you have built-in collaboration on documents within the Teams backend, where I could have an Excel document open and Katie and I could be in it, and I could be leaving comments in that Excel that automatically will go to Teams, or I can at Katie leave her a note and say, check out this cell, and she'll get a bing on her Teams with a link. So now the old school way would go find the file, read the notes, find out what cell she's talking about, and then she can review the formula. With this way, she could just click the link. It takes her right to that formula with any comments I have. So, a 5-step process now becomes 1. You basically click it now. And that's just one example of a really uptick in, using Teams, collaboration, and the power of multi-sharing on files. So then Planner, if we go into that, a couple things to point out. Again, it aligns teams. The biggest thing is alignment of the priorities. That's what I use. I help executive teams with their business strategy that aligns to the technology plan or roadmap. And when you look at priorities, sometimes we fall into a trap, especially at management or executive teams or leadership teams, of we have 5 things we want to get done and we all need them done now. And you got to prioritize and make sure we're all in agreement. So what it does is it makes sure we're all aligned, because I might want a graph or a Power BI dashboard. Somebody else might want a workflow. Somebody else might want something else, but we got to agree on the priorities and execution and timeline. So you really start getting better teamwork also, and the why they're in the order is equally important. And then that builds trust and psychological safety, so your organization really can start working better together. And then the meeting optimization is huge, and where instead of having Word document agendas or Excel document agendas that no one goes back and looks at, you build the agendas right inside of Planner. And everything is mapped historically, and you can look at any kind of notes that you may or may not have on a card, so nothing gets lost, everything's searchable. And it gets you out of this hunt and pecking for where's that agenda, what do we talk about, where are the minute notes. Everything is right there inside one location, and that's pretty powerful when it comes to just pure collaboration. Katie, do you want me to hop into a little demo now?
Sure, I will stop sharing my screen.
All right, so can you see my screen, Katie?
Yes, we can see it.
All right, good. So this is my Teams. This is kind of a simplified environment I have with my company and my assistant's notes. And she, this is what we collaborate all day in. We just leave notes. She leaves me reports, links to reports. If I need to approve things, she'll put it in approvals that are built in and say, hey, I want to put out this newsletter November. She uploads it. She, puts a hot link to it. She says, hey, can you approve this? I approve it. She gets notified, and then we move on with life. And this is no email at all, except a notification in my team's environment. So there's a lot of things. I can go into my planner right from here if I want to, which is what I really want to spend some time on. And then you have your other things that you can embed inside of Teams itself. So there's a ton of apps that you can embed in Teams. I don't know if a lot of people have that, but this Viva Insights and there's Viva Learning just came out, is a whole free learning library that you can learn on emotional intelligence to how to use Outlook or whatever. All this stuff is embedded right inside of Teams with external stuff too. You got a ton of apps, but the majority of the time when you level one, when you're starting out, it's your Teams, it's your calendar for Teams invites and calls, and then your files. So, and files are pretty powerful. Like I said, right here, this is where I have all my files, and we're in the actual, it's SharePoint backend, so you get your version control and all the file and compare functionality that you have. But really in setting up channels to segment files and security, and so you can collaborate on things. But this team is my company, right? So then any kind of post that I want to review, I can review. The search is super powerful. Once your files are embedded in, are uploaded into the Teams environment, everything is indexed inside the files, as well as names, including PDFs. So you can do full searches. I could type Grace and it will bring up any messages we talked about. Obviously she's my assistant, and any files that she may have contains Grace or Grace is in the middle of it. The search is super powerful. And if you hit the old backslash, there's a ton of shortcuts, but in addition to just being a search, you can do any kind of messages and chat with somebody, so you don't have to be bouncing back and forth. And a lot of people don't know I'm actually using Teams inside the browser right now. And so I can have the Teams app open, which we usually have our meetings going, but I could have multiple tabs in different spots and different channels with Teams going. So you can have multiple Teams open, multiple file sections open at the same time. So you can just bounce back and forth without drill, back, and drill around. So it's pretty neat what you can do with Teams. So I want to get into the planner side of things. If I can get this to minimize. How do I minimize this? Let's do this. So here's a sample planner. Now, this is my typical setup. These are called buckets inside a planner. And I have this as a separate tab. I could get to it inside of Teams if I want to, and I'll show you that in a second. But planner is how I live, how I set my priorities, what I get done, what I decide is number one. And since I ran a software dev shop in an agile fashion, it's kind of a Kanban pull forward system. But when I have a meeting for all my clients or departmental meetings, I always have this to discuss. So during the week, if I want to talk about printer renewals, machine specs, credits not printing, any projects, I'll just stick it here instead of putting it on an email and bringing it up there. We just roll through this, or I can add another one, say agenda, 12/09/21, and I can open that up, and I could put notes in here, which I usually, when I have weekly meetings with my clients, I basically keep notes. And what we talked about, I could show it on the card if I want to, not attach any documents I want to talk to, add any kind of checklists, mini checklists, show it on a card, attach a file from my computer, from a SharePoint, from the Teams. And then when I'm done, all my minutes are right here with this meeting. We talked about all this stuff. Then all I do is I mark it complete, and I usually put it in my completed column. So then it's all my notes are in this completed column. So I can always reference them if I needed to. And so these are things I want to discuss. These are things I'm working on actively. Like today, black ink, prepare the PowerPoint, look at the roadmap demo. Here's things I want to talk to you guys about. Get the demo done, look at that, talk about tech roadmaps. So just things that you want to get it out of your head and get it onto a card. What's neat about this is you got a planner mobile app also. So I'm driving down the road. I'm like, oh, I need to talk to Katie about this. I pull that card up. I do a voice to text right in the description. All my notes are there, and I move on with life. The key is to get it on a list so you can be present with what you're working on. It's such an uptick, and it's really a personal optimization hack, because you getting things on lists so you can stay focused. There's a great book on that called Deep Work. Get it on a book or get it on a list so you can stay focused, because if you have a 3-hour project and you have to stop and start because you remember, oh, I got to do this, oh, I got to do this. So you lose 10 minutes to get back to where you were, 10 minutes to get back in. So you really lose a lot of momentum. So getting into list management, whether it's To-Do or Planner, To-Do is more personal, although you can share it. Like To-Do is another app where I'll show it to you guys. It's if you haven't used it, and I know somebody said, I think Mary said she was using it, or Jenny was. You can have, like my wife and I have shopping lists. It pulls in Outlook emails that are flagged, or any things that were planned, assigned to me from planners. It's really the two engines that Microsoft has created for organizational and task management are Planner and To-Do. So To-Do is getting a lot of momentum. Planner I like for collaboration on projects and teams. And what's nice is To-Do, just think about it as personal, because it's going to pull your Outlook flagged emails. It'll pull things that are assigned to you, because if I wanted to assign this one to whoever, I'm the only one on the team right now, I could assign it to myself, and then in To-Do it'll show me, hey, you got this Katie PowerPoint review, and it'll just pull it all together. So I'm not going to Planner, I'm not going to Outlook, I'm not going to another area. It's just pulling it together. Microsoft realizes that To-Do and Planner are really your engine for task management, because everything is task management, right? We got to do something. So, but I've seen a serious uptick in team performance and optimization at executive level all the way down to frontline workers with using this planner, because then I could say, okay, that's done. Oh, I got to do this first now. Now I don't want to do that. If I want to, and then you can name these buckets anything you want. All right. So right now I took this from Getting Things Done, the book by Dave Allen, and basically they usually have 5 buckets, but after 3, I just put it in a backlog bucket. So usually my backlog bucket's done. So as I click off things here, then I just pull them forward, and then what's in my backlog, I pull in, and it's all about priority management. So if Katie says, hey, Craig, can you do this next week? I'll just add a task in my backlog and Katie discussion and leave it there safe on the list. I don't have to think about it anymore. And I stay focused on my things I need to get done today. And then you can always go back and, add labels, which these are all customizable. I just created these or renamed them. All you do is click on this and rename. And it's basically a color tagging system. You can still use old school hashtags, but this is kind of a nice way to visually see colors and groupings. And what's nice about this, you can see these, I'm looking at this in bucket view, and I have a few things that are in counting or whatever. I can change the look of this to say, show me who's by it's assigned to. There's one thing assigned to me. Or I can say, show me by labels. Here's all the accounting functions, regardless of what bucket they were in. Show me by priority if it's high, medium, low. Show me if it, by due date. So if I had due dates, you could see that this 23rd and 30th I have, today's the one. So you can group and sort this stuff any way you want. And if you have things that are, say this one's in process, because we're actually doing it right now, I could say, well, show me, roll it up by how many tasks are open, by who, what bucket, and any kind of statistics that you have. And it's pretty neat. And if I click on this one, you're going to have planners for every kind of team you're on. So this is my pipeline. This is my personal planner that I have stuff to do. Here's my work planner, my VCO. Here's my business strategy planner. So, and then you could drill in, but it pulls all, if you're assigned to it, it'll pull it all together for you from regardless of what planner you're in. So that's pretty powerful. You can see a calendar overlay if you want to, and then you can do a lot of customizations. If you're not using OneNote, I would highly recommend that you learn how to use OneNote, because in Outlook, in Teams meetings, Planner, you can provision a OneNote notebook that's specifically for this planner. Because what I find is we have Outlook, you get your normal communications, but if you have a master roadmap, then you set up a planner for it to keep track of each section. Some people will name these January, February, March, whatever, Q1, Q2, whatever for the bigger projects. But you have your roadmap of what we're going to accomplish that we're saying, then these become the working collaboration cards where I can leave notes on it, Katie can leave notes on it. We can add additional checklist items, we can update documents, we can leave comments. The deal with comments is they can't get erased like a description. Notes here can get overwritten. These are date stamped, so they can't get overwritten, and the user gets notified. I could say add Katie, blah blah blah, and she'll get a notification about it. And obviously progress, priority, and things of that nature. So you really, using these for real-time collaboration and project management is key. But sometimes you need like working papers. And you don't want to create another Word document that's static. You can't. People do that also. Word documents, Excel budgets, but you can also open up OneNote, which is like a real ad hoc notebook that can have files embedded in it, checklists, crazy checklists, multiple checklists, all that embedded. And what I'll do is I'll link the OneNote page right into this card. So when we're working on this, we get a high level, we get our next steps. And if we want to see any of the detailed working paper, we go into and we open up OneNote, which is all the detail back end. So you can see it just flows. Everything's electronic, everything's accessible all the time. And you can just keep it, everybody stays on the same page, which is really, really important. So that's kind of the flow that we've seen work a lot with our clients. And what you want to do is push this down to the lowest level possible. Obviously you can do executive quarter planning, then you can do operations or whatever department you're in, but this applies to everybody because we're all working on something. We're all deciding on what we're working on. And when I wake up in the morning, I have now stuff and I just say, okay, this is really the true number one. I have to get this PowerPoint done for this presentation today. I couldn't do call Mike first. I could have, but then I wouldn't have got to this and wouldn't have been prepared. So it's really conscious choice, conscious priority decision making, and then you just get things done. So listen, again, these technologies are so cool and there's so much out there that you can use. And when we look at all the tools that are in the Office 365, automatic scheduling with the bookings app, it looks at your calendar. And if I want to say, hey, Katie, pick a time that works for you next time, it's going to look at my calendar automatically, she could select a 15-minute slot, schedule it, puts it on hers, sends a reminder day before, an hour before, and things just don't get missed. There's a planner, the Power Apps, the whole Power Platform is really neat. When I was at that commercial real estate company rolling out the 300 users, I was surprised at the accountants that were rolling out Power Automate templates of approval things within Excel. you would think they're writing programs. They weren't. They were just saying, if I put a 1 in this column, send it to Katie to approve, and then she approves it, and then we move on, and then have somebody else approve it. And they were just doing these little scripts that it's like they call it the no code automation. So, and we really want to start enabling that as much as you can. But there's a ton of things here that we can use. So I guess I've been talking for about 40 minutes. Katie, do you have anything that you want me to specifically cover, or do you want to take a pause and do some Q&A? Or
Yeah, I think we can transition to Q&A. I can take back the screen if that's okay.
sure thing.
All right, let's go back. I know we got some good questions from our attendees, so I'll try to cover a few of those as well. But let's turn the page. So if you want to take away the key takeaways and then we can transition to Q&A, that would be great. But
Okay, cool. Yeah, the big thing for me is just the priority alignment using Planner. I've seen so many teams go off track because they think that number 3 was number 1, and it wasn't, right? So, and then it creates frustration, it creates tension, and you just get a lot further faster, and you're basically happier. I believe in the ripple effect. You know, you happy at work because you're aligned, you're getting things done, you go home happy, and the world's a better place, right? So getting rid of as much tension as you can is really important. And just the increased productivity through the collaboration. Like I mentioned in that Excel, I could be in an Excel document, leaving real-time comments, calling out Katie with a link to check out a cell. You cut down 5 steps to 1. And then really it's about optimizing yourself and knowing that you're working on the one thing you should be working on in the order you should be working on it, and that's really cool. And I use this personally. You see, I have a bunch of these over here. Well, I'm not sharing, but I have a planner set up for my home projects, just so I stay aligned with my wife. So I'm not working on number 8 and she wants me to work on number 1. I just burned 8 hours working on the wrong thing. It helps out personally and professionally. And whether you're using To Do for that or Planner and OneNote, I live in OneNote, and that's optimizing yourself. OneNote is my electronic file cabinet. I have it on all my devices. When I have a document or a contract, I take pictures of it, scan it in, use the Office app, and I don't keep paper anymore, and even like simple things like old paint cans, they ran out of paint, you're keeping the can around because you want to keep the label, take a picture on it, you label it house trim paint. Guess what? Next year when you need to go get it, you just search house trim paint and you take the label into the store and you go get it. So you're not, it can optimize you in a whole different way of thinking. I had one client use OneNote for a document imaging system they were going to buy $100,000 document imaging system to keep pictures of finished products. I'm like, well, let's just get the serial number in there with whatever phase, take pictures with their phones and the iPads. And guess what? We linked it back to the accounting system with the URL because everything's web-based. Now, $100,000 goes right in the bottom line that we didn't need to do because we have these tools right at our fingertips.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Craig. I love the point about utilizing it both in your personal life and professional life. I know I use the Notes app on my iPhone and can be very disorganized. So probably should take that advice myself. But I wanted to cover a few topics that people submitted, making sure everyone gets their questions answered. And there's a few that we might have already touched upon. And feel free to jump in when I ask these questions. This is an open forum, but I will kind of guide us through this discussion. So the first question, which I think is a good place to start, is someone asked, and I think this was Doug's question, how do I get started on Teams? So let's say my company just started on Microsoft Teams, or I don't even utilize it yet. How can I convince people to really align on Teams?
So I have some training documents, and I could share those with you, Katie, but Microsoft's done a really good job at the awareness side of things, right? So awareness is number one. You got to say, what is Teams? How am I going to use it? Video conferencing, whatever else. But Microsoft, they have these nice 3 to 5 minute videos, 5 of them or whatever, 5 to 10 of them. You just make sure people get up to speed on what it is, how they can use it, and they're quick and easy overview, and then talk about how we can use it in the company, right? So after you go through the videos, set up a team, upload some files, move those are the first two steps that people usually do. They get teams going, they start doing video conferencing, and then they get chatting going, and then they get their files uploaded to the team structure so they can see the power of the collaboration and get off the file servers. Because once they're in teams, then you can access them anywhere, anytime, securely on any device, and you get version control and you can multi-edit. There's just the upside. So that's usually phase one, but the awareness and talking about the why. People get on board when you say why we're doing this. We want to access our stuff wherever, whenever, securely. We want to be more efficient working together, and then start moving. But that's usually the first phase that we go through.
Great. That is a great tip, especially if you're already using another platform. Bringing that awareness and getting everyone on board is definitely step one. And turning over to, I know you discussed with the bucket method of kind of managing priorities and shifting them as the days go on or if different tasks switch. But Jenny wants to know, what are ways that she can stay on top of her to-do list and really keep those top priorities at the top of her mind?
Here's the psychological side of it. It's getting your system in to do or planner and making sure you're disciplined with a routine of every day. You look at before, I have an AM routine that you get up before you start running into the day, consciously decide on what the number one, number two, top three, I call it. What are the top three things you're gonna get done this week? Top three you're gonna get done this month. Top three you're gonna get done today. The big stuff. And then but then weekly review and reorganize, because everybody gets out of whack, right? It's life, nothing's perfect, there are no straight lines. But a weekly routine, whatever list or tool you're using, make sure you re-look at the priorities and making sure you're just not working on the urgent stuff, you're working on the important stuff too. There's that nice urgent important quadrant that we all got our day jobs that we have to do, but making sure you're getting to the important stuff. And I have one client they classified, because you can have multiple tags on the card. I only showed it one. I can have black ink and it's urgent, black ink and it's not urgent, but it's important, right? So you can even group your cards by that bucket, but it's just important. It's more self-discipline and using the system all the time. When I'm going down the road, somebody says, you got to do something. It's like, gosh, I got to remember to do that. No, I just say, hang on, blah, blah, blah. I pop it on the list. Is it totally complete? No, but I don't have to sit there and think about it, so I can be present, and you'll just be more efficient in life, personally and professionally.
For sure. And I don't want to dominate the discussion, but I saw you had a completed bucket. So it seems like what you're saying too is, as important it is to prioritize certain tasks, it's also good to almost reward yourself when you do complete a task and keep track of those completed, because that also kind of gets you in a place of just like a better mindset of feeling productive and keeping track of what's accomplished.
We all get a dopamine rush when we check off something on the list, right? We just get it. It's a chemical reaction that happens. We have all created lists and already had one thing done on it, so we could get, I already got it done. 10 things. I create my list and I have one thing checked off already. It's because we want to get that accomplishment feeling. So getting that completed bucket, it does feel good to say, wow, bing, it's done. So it's and the more you can do that with yourself and other people, the momentum just really goes to a whole nother level. You good?
And I have one more, and anyone else feel free to jump in, but we talked about how do I get started on Teams, and I think raising awareness is a really key way, and maybe starting with video conferencing and then seeing how you can add task delegation and file sharing and whatnot. But let's say you just don't have buy-in from your team individually, like your whole office uses Teams, but your own team within the office isn't really buying into Planner or whatever tool you're using in Teams, what strategies would you say can help motivate the team to get on board?
I just had this happen at a client too, where it's, they put their priorities in there, but it was almost like it was a checkup meeting on their task. And you don't want to be a micromanager on this stuff. You want it to be a enabler to help each other. So running meetings from Planner is super, super, it shifts the mindset, right? So that to discuss, get people in the habit of, if it can wait till our weekly meeting, and I do recommend weekly meetings, rhythm meetings, I call them, just stick it in the to discuss column and we'll go through it. We'll talk about it. We'll put notes on it actively in that meeting and we'll solve it, or we'll put it in a bucket that and prioritize. So that way you start seeing, oh, you are using this. We are going to use this. And then we work through the priorities and say, it's not a checkup. It's like, any updates on this? Is there anything you need help on? So it's really, because, in old meetings, it's me looking at you saying, what did you get done? The psychological side of Planner is, hey, this card, you said you were going to get it done by here. Did you get it done? It's not you saying, where is it? It's like they said it. So there's accountability comes into play when you start using tools like that.
For sure. And any other questions that arose throughout the presentation for anyone? We have a few more minutes, but I don't want to take up everyone's afternoon.
I think Mary put something in the chat here. Is there a way to create a template set of tasks that you can automatically set when trigger for them? Yeah, Power Automate is very powerful. So yes, number one, you can set template cards. I had one client, they set up a card as the onboarding checklist, and then you can copy that card and you can add and then put a name on it or whatever. But then Power Automate is a no code where you could say, if I check this box, automatically send an email to so-and-so, automatically create another card. And I think there's over 1,000 templates. You just like say Planner, and it's no coding, it'll show you the flow. And then you say, it's me, it knows you because you're already authenticated into the Office 365 environment. You could say, and it knows what access you have to what planners. You could say, I'm on this one, I want to create a planner task on this planner or in this bucket or whatever. So Power Automate would be your solution to do some of those automated functionality, especially in the opportunities. Mary, I hope that answered your question. Jacob, you're on mute, but you're the only one I could see. You got any questions?
I guess one thing I haven't played a whole lot with Planner. One of the things I've been curious about is if could you set up just dependencies on cards? Like this card can't be done on this card the way you can in more primitive or more traditional waterfall type of project planning, like project.
Yeah, that gets into more of a project where you're Gantt charting things, I mean, the overhead of getting into those dependencies, people usually shy away from, just because when they miss it just totally kind of messes up the whole plan. There's certainly a need for Microsoft Project and those interdependencies. What I'm seeing is this more agile mentality, and again, you can format these buckets any way you want, and you can say this bucket has to get done before this bucket, but you can hyperlink cards from cards too. Like I can say, copy a link. I didn't show it, and I'm not sharing my screen, but on the card itself, the 3 ellipses, you could say copy link to task, and you can have that link as a checklist on another task. So you can cross link them, and I've seen people do that because they don't want to go with the overhead of Microsoft Project or the dependencies, and they're making it work too, and it's cool. And then they throw Power Automate on top of it. Man, you got a lot of things going on that is pretty powerful. But then you got this agile mentality. And the thing, when people start talking about implementing teams, there's like, man, I got to get this perfect. I'm like, perfection's the enemy of progress, and you can change anything you want in the team's environment. Say you put the files in a wrong team, so what? You move them over to the other team, or you set up your planner buckets wrong. So what? You can rename them, you can reorganize them, you can drag and drop them. Nothing is hard coded in this system, you know, but then you can start automating. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, for sure. The other question I had, I'm a big fan of both Cal Newport and David Allen. I've been getting things done for like 15 years in some version or another. So my two Microsoft lists, one of them is a projects list and the other is a next actions list. And on every next action item, I have a link back to the project it's for. How do you do that in Planner? Do you have a different, is each planner represent a different project then in the way you were doing it?
It could be either or, right? So yeah, GTT is awesome. I was using a OneNote, you know, with my 1, 2, 3, 4, now, next, soon, you know, someday, whatever. I had all 5 buckets there.
Yeah.
But what I've been doing is, you know, when I didn't show you all my stuff because confidentiality stuff, but I had my client projects, then I got my personal projects, and I got my pipeline, and I got my Sierra. Those are all different things. But if I assign those cards to me, I can go to my hub and it'll pull them all together for me. And then since you have due dates, you can have your labels, you're grouping it however you want, you know. And I didn't show this, but when you're in Teams, at the top, you could add planner there, which is where you add it at the top of the menu. But there's a list function in Teams that you don't get when you're just using plain planner in the browser. So you can make it look like an Excel sheet and sort and group just in a straight list function, but yet you got all the power of the planner, you know? So this is fun for me because I've been doing old school GTD forever, you know, and even OneNote, I couldn't drag and drop, but the visual card representation really is an adoption factor for a ton of people. And the fact you could have all those notes, link it to OneNote, you could see how that all works together. And boy, it's just, you quit the chasing of data and you just work on what you need to work on and you bring the data to you. And that's a big thing.
For sure. Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. Nice to meet you too. All right, Katie.
All right. Well, if no one else has any other questions, we have a QR code on our screen. So if you want to pull back up your phones, we'd really appreciate any feedback you have in our survey. We're always looking to improve these presentations and resources we're offering. So we'd very much appreciate your feedback. And if you have any other follow-up questions, I know Craig has been really open to answering them, as well as us here at Black Ink. So feel free to follow up with us if you end up implementing something and want to share or have any further questions. But I just want to say thank you to Craig for sharing your expertise. I know I learned a lot of new strategies today that we'll definitely take away. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming.
Yep, thank you everyone. Thanks, Katie.
Have a good
See ya,
rest.
guys.